Right, that should be it recording now. Um, the topic of the day is Boris Johnson in intensive care, and people are sort of throwing up their hands and worrying deeply that this is their lost leader. What are your own thoughts on that?
Well, Jude, I think the Brits haven't really. I'm watching Dominic Raab, and I could be wrong, and I'm not an expert in body language, but the man seems extremely nervous. In fact, he can't hide it in his voice. I think there might be a bigger crisis than even they're admitting.
I think,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Jude.
I was going to say I agree with you, but on the other hand, you have to remember that Dominic Raab, even at the best of times, looks like he was nervous and didn't know what he was talking about.
Well, you see, that's the point. I'm not 100% sure of this, but the thing about it, I'd say the stress levels, like what Johnson went through in the election campaign, like he basically went for the Trump approach, and he totally divided the country. He even divided his own family, and he divided his own party. Now, the stress levels there, the hatred and the vitriol towards him by his non-supporters, if I can put it that way, was quite severe. In fact, a lot of the British establishment are still very hurt by his actions. Now, put that first, and then you take over, and the next thing that hits you at 100 miles an hour is COVID-19, and then you get it. Not only do you get it, your chief health officer gets it, or chief medical officer, and another member of the health secretary.
Yeah.
The three people you put your faith in to look after this crisis, all three, get this bug.
He looks like a guy. He looks to me like
he was confident.
Yeah, I wouldn't use the words Dominic Raab and confidence in the one sentence. I think that really the man to watch is Michael Gove. I think that Johnson's going to be out of commission one way or another for the next couple of months, because he's come through some severe stuff. And if you think that Niall Murphy, for example, admittedly he was in the worst situation, but he's getting better, we hope, very slowly. But, having been in the ICU, it seems to me that it'll take months before Boris gets back in the saddle. The thing that I found interesting at the time when his admittance to an ICU unit was I went onto Twitter, and the vitriol was ferocious. Now, I'm talking, the thing that struck me most was people coming on and saying, oh, terrific, and little gifs of guys dancing around and smiling and clapping their hands, and really saying things like, how's that herd immunity coming, Boris? And it really was naked hatred, actually. And they also were leveling a lot of it also at Laura Kuenssberg, saying that she was incapable of even saying her best wishes to go to the Prime Minister. That just took me aback. I mean, I'd reject Boris and all his works in pubs, but I mean, he's a human being. And these guys were just...
Absolutely. And Jude, I would be, like, Tory austerity, Boris's attitude towards Israel and all the rest of it, where he seems to think that they can do no wrong and all the rest, I would be 180 degrees opposite to Boris Johnson. But by God, I don't think anybody deserves to be treated with the vitriol. He's a human being, whatever. But British politics, Jude, is seriously polarized, and it seems to be he went definitely for the Trump option. In other words, he didn't care about those who didn't agree with him were just going to be discarded. And I don't mean he's paying a price for it. Now, that's not what I'm trying to say, but he's left a legacy that it's that old thing. I remember years ago doing a course where someone said the royal family was the cement that held British society together. Well, the cement is starting to fray a bit.
Yeah. Anyway, it was just a combination of the two things. Boris's admission to hospital and to the intensive care unit, and then the reaction on Twitter. And I was wondering, actually, and then we'll leave this topic, I was wondering, was it anything to do with the fact that, how can I put this, there wouldn't have been many middle-class professionals on saying the things that were being said. I was wondering, was it more of a working class frankness where you'd speak your mind, you'd say, I hate that bastard. Or whereas the middle
I don't think that applies anymore. I have noticed John Hume once claimed to me about a certain politician that he was an educated bigot. I don't think that, as if there was the excuse for being a bigot was you weren't educated. I've, when you look at some of the right across America, just watch Fox News, Jude, come on. There are plenty of people with serious brains and serious education, Yale, Harvard, and anywhere else you want to go, who are beyond bigots. They are serious. I don't know where you'd even stop describing them. Basically Ku Klux Klan. Let's go back to 1940s America, where the black man knew his place and all that sort of stuff. And these people have a big audience. Where are we going?
Who would have thought that we would have been so obsessed with something else other than Brexit? I bet you'd forgotten about Brexit virtually. Unbelievable.
About 3 weeks ago, and I was doing social distancing, but there was this guy who I don't know from Adam walked past me. He says, "Don't you miss Brexit?" Well, it was actually very funny because that's exactly. I was thinking, no, Brexit. I'd reached a stage that Brexit had bored me to death. I sort of lost the will to live when somebody mentioned Brexit. But God, it seems such a harmless thing. It was only an economics thing. This here is so, like John Prine, one of my favourite singers.
Oh, he died yesterday.
Yeah. I only heard it this morning.
I love him.
Yeah, absolutely. The speed of the sound of loneliness. There's a home daddy's arm where all the money goes. And all that sort of, and it's taken people. Even look, there's a solicitor, a man not too far from where I live, died this morning as well. Now I don't think it's COVID, but there's all sorts of things going on, and it's on such an unusual time.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned this before, Jude. I was chatting to a former journalistic colleague some weeks ago, and he says, "No, if we survive this in years to come," he says, "we'll be talking about the people that we knew who are now gone." And this is actually happening. Like all the icons are, look how many, even Ryan Tubridy in the south of Ireland, Claire Byrne. These are two RT people who got COVID, and even look at Boris, look at the Hancock, look at the chief medical officer. This is not this is real.
I think that springs. We'll go on to another one now, but I just say that I think this springs in part from our belief that somehow notable figures are exempt in these matters. Ordinary people get the virus, but not the really big shots.
Yeah, but hey, maybe the beautiful thing about this virus, and there's not a nice thing you can say, is it's non-discriminatory. Prince Charles got it. Yeah, there's no, it's brought. You asked a question the last time, Jude, we were doing this. What will change? And I still can't answer that. I genuinely can't. But one thing that does strike me is that we will all be changed. I think the economic situation will be changed. I think the way of working will be changed. The whole thing about, there was a woman an immunologist, I hope I pronounced that right, because I can never pronounce these sort of words, or a virologist. She was on RT the other morning, and she says, for years, she says, a lot of viruses, I don't know whether this is real. She says, found their homes in trees and forests and all the rest of it. And she says, we're disturbing a lot of the natural world. Now, I don't know whether COVID-19 has got any connection with that, but the thought occurred to me, is that really what's happening?
It's very difficult. I think it's be attached to globalization in terms of its spread, certainly, because there's so much international travel and so on. But to come back to your thing about what change, I was thinking about that, and I think maybe we exaggerate the extent to which things will be changed. I think certain things that are already on their way will be accelerated. I'm not
What
sure
do you mean?
Well, I'm thinking here of the high street. I think the high street's had it. I really do. Because people are getting their food, they're getting anything else that they're getting that sent to them. And, the high street was in trouble before this. People have got into the habit of using the internet an awful lot more and using, remote requests for delivery of all sorts of things. I do think the high street will really find it terribly hard to come back. But I'm not sure that the basic, I think we have a capacity for forgetting so quickly. For example, you think this is the most severe lesson that health must be at the top of any agenda.
Yeah.
I don't think that governments will do that. I think they'll say things like, oh, well, as Leo would say, or Boris would say, oh, you have to have a sound economy before you can have a good health system.
Oh, yeah. Sure, Trump refused to countenance shutting down an economy until he had no choice. Boris, this herd immunity rubbish, he tried to not shut down. I still think one of the greatest crimes of all was allowing Cheltenham to go ahead for 4 days in the middle of it. 100,000 people a day coughing and sneezing on each other and all the rest of it. That was unbelievable.
Yeah, that big game between Liverpool and I forget who they were now.
Atletico Madrid.
Yeah. I mean, tens of thousands there. Sort of crazy. But I mean, as I say, I'd be kind of dubious about sweeping changes. But I would think
just to cut across you 1 second, Jude. Another thing, and it's close to home in my case. A lot of local newspapers will never make it through this. Local newspapers, a lot of it is based on advertising revenue. It's a big part of their funding model. Well, there are now all the particularly around here in the south of Ireland, all the pubs are closed, all the hotels are closed, there's no sport, there's no anything. They will. We for 200 years relied on our local papers for local news, for our courts, councils, and all the rest of it. Now that was a part of democracy. I used to know the solicitor who said his best advertising was a good court case in the local paper. I remember when I started off in journalism, I used to go down to West Donegal. You'd go into places like Garda, Hark, Falcara, Gweedore, and you do local notes, and you tell all the different stories. What replaces that?
I think I totally agree with you. Well, I think local papers were again, that's something that's happening already, and I think that the coronavirus thing will accelerate
will be the final blow. Yeah.
What about the two people who were sort of in the news during the week besides Boris, Queen Elizabeth and Leo Varadkar? Queen Elizabeth with her rallying the troops and addressing the nation, so to speak, and Leo saying that he's going to do is it a 1 day or one shift as a doctor? What did you watch Her Majesty?
Yeah, I saw the Queen's one and I saw Leo's. Look, I don't know if you're Prime Minister, you should be going on this. I'm being a wee bit cynical about Leo's about going on 1 day a week. Surely he has enough on his plate. But hey, I don't want to be cynical about it, Jude, to the extent that I am dismissing it. Leo and what do you call the guy? His name's just got the health minister. His name's got it in my head. They have been fantastic. They have worked their socks off in this crisis, and I have to say, Leo has been very statesmanlike and all the rest of it. And the handling it. The Queen, she's 94. I think she's, you can have a go at the whole British royal family thing, but that's a matter for a different day. I thought she was actually very, very good at a time of crisis for Britain. Credit where credit's due. I'm not going to have a go at it. I know some people who are anti-royalist and Republican are going to have a bash at it and all the rest for the usual, the usual suspects do the usual thing. But at a time like this, I don't think it's time for bashing people who are trying to do the right thing.
Well, I watched it too, and I was very struck by it. I mean, I was deeply impressed, and in fact, most of the commentators spoke similarly. They said, really, can you believe that she'll be 94 in a month's time or something? But somebody once said, if you could live long enough and take the top of a boiled egg, you'd be proclaimed a genius in British society. That age, simply being old, was, that was a great achievement. It was something you'd chosen. Yeah. She is, as a physical specimen of 94, she is amazing. I thought her speech was okay. She spoke clearly and so on. But I was trying to put myself in the shoes of someone who would have loyalty to her. And to be honest with you, it didn't really seem to me one of the best speeches. It also was, obviously, very obviously, a commercial for the monarchy. The notion of the monarchy is being continuous because they had that black and white photograph of her and her sister.
In 1940.
1940. So, again, the monarchy was there then, the monarchy's here now, and look at how abiding we are and what a rock you have to cling to. So, in one way, I suppose she was doing a good job. On the other hand, no monarch ever appears on the screen without some sort of personal interest in it. And I'd say the same thing about Leo. I give him his due and say, yeah, good guy. He's prepared to go in there and help. He is a doctor and so on. Although I'm not sure what help he can give, because once he's been out of the...
Is he going to answer the phones, or is he going to actually do medicine?
Well, that's it, you see. And I would worry about it, because, as you say, he's doing a good job as Taoiseach. If he caught the virus, you'd be back to the Boris situation again. I think he'd be much better sticking to the day job, you know.
Well, when you consider, you know, I'm trying to not fall into the trap of having a go, because it's just too easy. But you know, Fine Gael, Leo, his publicity people are absolutely unbelievable. He has spent a fortune on his image and all the rest of it. But no, I'm trying not to do that, because it's just, you know, it's like an open goal. But as behaviour, the only thing I would take a go at, and I'm really serious about this one, what was it? Sinn Féin, and got a massive number of first preference vote.
Yes.
And one thing I do see the southern politicians, it's almost as if Sinn Féin's vote has been totally ignored by Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, that those million plus people don't exist.
Well, that's
they're going to go ahead and form a government.
Yes.
And just sort of say, oh, by the way, you people who voted Sinn Féin don't count. I think that is arrogance, and I genuinely think it's going to come back and bite them big time.
Well, I wonder. I would share your feelings, but you could argue, you know, that this is the way that PR works. It's not by a straight majority.
Oh, hold on, Jude. It's never been in the history of. Okay, you're 100% right. This is technically, it can work, but I don't think in the history of the Irish state that the party with the most first preference votes has been ruled out automatically from any talks about forming a government.
I think that's the key thing. The key thing is the reasons for not including them under any circumstances. I think that I think the media is shameful that they really haven't probed that. They're saying things like shadowy figures. Now, even Tommy Gorman pointed out that was nonsense. You know, they weren't shadowy figures. They were guys who were advisors or
I want to crush you again, Jude. That is the biggest load of rubbish going. Like the DUP, if you read what he calls his book, Sam McBride's book, Burnt, the DUP were actually being run by spads. There were guys in the background who had far more power than elected representatives and ministers. Now, if Micheál Martin, gone asked him, you know, like Tom Curran is the General Secretary of Fine Gael, has massive power. I can't remember the name of the guy who's the General Secretary of Fianna Fáil. He has massive power. There are always advisors and people in the background. This is this rubbish to come out. And by the way, the ones in Sinn Féin, even I think it was I can't remember what do you call him, the former BBC security, Brian Rowan. Yeah. Brian Rowan said these people are not shadowy figures. They're well known. Everybody knows them. They're across policy and all the rest. And if Martin O'Muller sent back a budget for somebody to have a look at it before he says, "Is this okay with you?" Big deal.
I agree with that. I think though the other thing would be, if you're talking about Fianna Fáil and probably Fine Gael as well, they would say, well, there's this past, you know, the past that the Republicans have, that Sinn Féin have, and the fact that they haven't apologised for what they have done. That's been put forward. Well, you know, Micheál Martin will certainly say something to that effect if pressed.
Yeah.
I personally just can't even begin to accept that. That seems such arrant nonsense. They spent, you know, years and years, and John Hume worked very hard at it to bring Sinn Féin out of, or Republicans out of violence and into the electoral system. And now they're in the electoral system. They're saying, well, we can't have anything to do with you because you were involved in violence in the past.
Yeah, and but there's also that, and it's such an obvious bit of hypocrisy. They're saying to the people in the north, "Hey, you have to accept Sinn Féin government, but we won't." You know, and the other thing, like for anybody in Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael to talk about people and know their past, you know, like I have got a book there behind me somewhere about the history of the founding of the Irish state, and if anybody wants to read it, you know, about the Civil War and the murders and the shootings and the cruelty of it all, you know, I don't, you know, insurrection tends to bring out the worst in people. So
and the guys, the elected to the first Dáil coming in with guns in
what is they said? They most quite a few of them had guns under their arms, under their, so like it was, and they were ready for a shooting match.
Yeah, but you just have to accept maybe the fact that they're not doing anything illegal, and that's how politics works. People take advantages where they can find them, and that's the way it is. And we shouldn't be expecting any kind of real decency or that kind of thing. That it's all fair and politics.
Jude, when you boil it down to this fact, and this is one fact that those people who voted Sinn Féin, whether you agree with them, disagree with them, whether you say they're Republican or whatever, or people who wanted change and all the rest, the fact that those people are being dismissed, that vote doesn't count, that I think, and most of them are young people who want change, who are fed up with the old system where the Mercs and the Perks and the Galway tent and all the things, the licenses that were handed out for people to make money, the NAMAs and all the rest of the things that went on. A lot of young people saying, we are fed up with this system. It's the same people looking after it and looking out for each other. We want change. Now, if Sinn Féin get in and mess up, we can treat them with the same contempt as we can treat Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour and all the rest. But the one thing so far, Sinn Féin have never been in power. So therefore, you can give them a bye ball until such times as they mess up. But for those in Dublin to just dismiss those people who voted in such a cavalier way, I find that unbelievable.
Yeah. Do you think will there be consequences? Do you think? I mean, Leo's saying we really have to have a government that'll be in place for 4 or 5 years. Do you think the people that are indignant now and seeing the things you're saying, that the biggest number of votes, first preference votes, went to Sinn Féin, and that's all going to be ignored? Do you think that indignation will still be alive and will have political consequences after 4 or 5 years?
Well, if I was a member of the new coalition, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, what I would do, and I think they will probably do if they're smart, know the agenda Sinn Féin have been, about rejigging the housing programme, rejigging the health service to a one-tier system and all the rest. If they're really smart in 5 years, they'll have that sorted out. So that it's like the civil rights movement, the 6 demands. Get the 6 demands done before the next election.
Would you figure that will spike? It's not a good metaphor, but do you figure that will spike the Sinn Féin guns, as it were?
Well, you need to be careful about one of that, Jude. Yeah, I think it would. If Jude, I think all in, there were something like 1 million people on waiting lists for elective surgery and non-elective surgery, on waiting lists to get there were people on trolleys and all the rest of it. And it's a fact, we spend more on health per capita in the Republic of Ireland that I'm talking about than Germany. Yet our outcomes are far, far inferior. And there's something not right about the system. We're throwing money at it and it's not working. And as well as that, there's this whole thing, and I'm not going over the whole ground because we've covered it before, but public and private health, two-tier system, where if you're public, you could wait maybe, if you've got something wrong with your eyes, you can wait for maybe a year, 18 months to get seen by a specialist. If you're private, you can get seen the next day. Well, that is totally wrong. That is definitely wrong.
I think that's something that you're quite right, and that's something that the government has at the moment eliminated. You don't have private medicine. But I'd be almost certain, because the private consultants are already making noises, that they will come back and you will have a private and public system after all this dies down. Maybe move on briefly to the question of this notion that it was an orange and green thing here in Stormont. Michelle O'Neill's statement and not maintaining solidarity and so on, in terms of the threat of the coronavirus. Do you think that that's how it's breaking down, that you have political parties looking after themselves and the things that they espouse, rather than looking after the welfare of people whose life and death may depend on it?
Well, I read John O'Dowd saying, it's sort of like the Bill Clinton one, it's the economy stupid. He says it's life and death stupid, and all the rest. But it is breaking down that way. Arlene Foster is hiding. I'm going on the medical advice. Now, the medical advice right across Europe is that shutting things down, trying to flatten the curve, and all the rest of it, that we should learn from what happened in Europe. Boris Johnson and his government went for this herd immunity thing and so on. The South opted for and I'm trying to touch wood here. In the South, it seems to have worked, but there wasn't a sort of careless, slow move to do the right thing in Britain and in the North, and that, by the way, that's caused massive, what would you say, resentment here in Donegal. Last night, very simple thing. From about just to get out of the house yesterday, we went for a wee drive. There's a place called Green and Avalia right behind us. We just did a wee circle out for about 10 minutes, about 2 kilometres, just to get out of the house. And there was 4 young fellas sitting on a northern registered car with another fella leaning in the window. Apparently, there are any number of the Gardaí apparently are now going out at night. There are many people heading to holiday homes, travelling in the middle of the night, and all that. It's not about anti-Northern, or it's not about anything else. What it's about is people not taking seriously this whole thing. This, when you consider that Prince Charles got it, Boris Johnson got it, Ryan Tubridy's got it. I could keep poor John Pryne's died from it. Like, this is not something that people should be, playing silly games with. And I think this in the North, there's the unions are. This is what the British government's saying, and I think Sinn Féin are saying this is what Dublin are doing, and we're living on the one island. Now you can play that orange and green, but look, so far I think, and I'm hoping that the Irish government have been right pretty much all along the way. The British government certainly have, and the proof of the pudding, by the way, Jude, final point on it. Your Prime Minister has it, your Secretary of State has it, or Health Secretary, sorry, and the Chief Medical Officer. What does that tell you about the carelessness of the approach?
Yeah. I think you're right. I think what must be judged is which of the two approaches are in public interest. And if that happens to fall into a green and orange situation, that's fine. The point is, you should be looking at what is the best path to take. And because it happens to fall into Sinn Féin one way and unionism another way, that's beside the point. And to suggest that people are doing it as political parties, first of all, I think they'd be crazy. Any political party that would obviously put their own interest beyond the public interest are asking for trouble. And I don't think Sinn Féin are doing that here. I mean, they'd be happy to take the political advantage it will bring them. And of course, they'd be happy to have the notion of an All-Ireland unit working again. But I do believe that they're doing it for the right reasons. And the proof of the pudding, as you say, is which of the two systems are working better. Which of the two have so many of the leaders in hospital with the bloody disease? Final point, you mentioned at the last day, Pat, this notion of old-time religion. Not old-time religion, but religion coming back, making a comeback, so to speak, because of the virus. What signs have you seen of that?
Jude, I am not on Facebook. I give it up for that. But I'm getting lots of messages. This is true. And I'm serious. I'm getting at least 2 private messages, at least 2, maybe 3 a day. Please, these sort of circular chain things. Please pass on this prayer.
Yes.
And I got one. What struck me was I got one from a guy who I know to be a rabid atheist, whatever. And I thought, this guy's sending me a prayer, And then, remember the famous one, there's no atheists in the trenches. And remember Brendan Behan's famous one, during the day, he didn't believe in God, but at night he started praying. Well, I think seeing a crisis like this, and by the way, my wife was out one place and she was in a shop. This is about maybe a month ago, and it was prior to the whole thing. And she says, I don't know why the woman who was ahead of me, she says, picked on me, but she started on, this is what the price we're all paying for turning away from God. Look at all these young people and all what they're doing, and they've no respect for each other, and they've no sex, sin, rock and roll, and all the rest, drinking too much drugs, and this is the price we're all paying. And somewhere in the back of my head, I thought, will there be a reaction, that people turn back again towards, God and religion? I don't know, but I thought to myself, yeah, there probably will be. That'll be one of the things that a lot of people have probably started praying, And once you start, maybe you'll keep going.
Okay, you might and you mightn't. The person that my mother used to always preface her comments on with the remark, that old turncoat, Jerry Fitt, used to describe himself as being a 35,000 feet Catholic. When he was 35,000 feet above the ground, that he would, begin to discover all sorts of, supernatural links in himself and see prayers and so on. But the point was, when he came down to earth again, he wasn't a Catholic anymore, or he wasn't the same devout person. So you wouldn't say that whenever this all passes, when people feel safe again, they'll go, say, well, what's the point in religion? It's silly and nonsense.
But there's, there's always a remnant. There's always something residual. When you get a real scare and you turn and you start praying, somewhere in the back of your head, I think it stays with you, that you don't totally lose that.
Well, I think that's the case with many people in Ireland still, but the fact remains that the attendance at church has gone right down.
Absolutely.
And I imagine there are people who are praying now who've never prayed for the last 30 years, but I'm afraid I'd be cynical enough to think that they wouldn't, once the danger passes, the dose of piety will diminish quickly.
Jude, I'm not. It's only a sort of an empirical thing. There's no or anecdotal. There's no fact behind it. I was just thought to myself, and a number of times in recent times that I have received, please pass this on. And by the way, I don't pass on chain things because I don't agree with them. But there was a lot of very decent people. No people I would have time for and like passing on prayers, and I thought I'm not knocking that at all. In fact, I thought it was quite a nice thing.
Well, final question, Pat. How do you think you've changed yourself? How long have you been under lockdown now?
I don't think there's been anybody on our street, friend-wise, Jude, in about 5-6 weeks. Our children haven't been here. I'm very lucky. There's a sort of a plantation, a forest behind us. We live on a reasonably sort of big site, so we can go out and sit outside and all the rest of it. I'm trying to keep a routine. To answer your question, Jude, I don't know how it's changed. The wife said the other day, when she sees the postman, she nearly feels like running out and sort of having a conversation with a real human being. That's the way it is. And I haven't been inside a shop in best part of, I'm not kidding you, 6 weeks. And like all the pubs are closed. Jude, I don't know. By the time this is finished, either I'll be a complete hermit, or else I'll be running down the road, embracing everybody just to feel that I'm a human being again.
Do you find the pressure though? Do you find it's good for you or bad?
No, my wife made a very good point last. She says, if this keeps going, you will find it getting to you. And I think you have to acknowledge the fact that what I'm doing now, Jude, and I hope other people are doing it as well, I'm trying to find a routine.
Yeah.
See, in the morning, I get up and I have my breakfast and I watch someone escapist, like A Place in the Sun on TV. I'll do something like that. Then I have a routine. I'm painting a house and I do that for 2 or 3 hours. Then I try and go for a walk. There's 2 kilometers. Me and the wife will go 2 kilometers there and 2 kilometers back, because that's legal. And then at night, I might try and find someone on Netflix, a film, or read a book. And I'm just trying to get, and of course we keep in touch with the kids, give them a ring and so on. So I'm trying to get, and if I can find an odd bottle of red wine on various different times of the day, or the week, sorry, jeepers, you wouldn't be drinking during the day here. But if you could find one, sometimes it breaks it up. So I'm trying to keep busy and trying to get through this.
So you don't find that you're exploring plumbing depths in yourself that you haven't done before?
No, Jude. What is it, Charlie Hoyce? It's deep down. I'm very superficial.
I think I'll leave it at that note, Pat. That's brilliant.
Okay, Jude.
Okay, we'll talk to you again.